Welcome. I'm Holly Martinez, the Executive Director of the Representation Project. We're a nonprofit organization founded by Jennifer Siegel Newsom, dedicated to using films, education, and campaigns to fight sexism and challenging harmful gender norms and stereotypes. We're so excited today to dive into some topics regarding our workshop from the Gender Equity Training, also known as our GET curriculum, specifically to talk about social media and mental health. On average, teens spend 4 hours and 48 minutes on social media each day, with 1 in 4 reporting that it negatively affects their well-being. Additionally, 59% of U.S. teens have been bullied or harassed online. These statistics highlight the urgent need for programs like GET to address these challenges head-on. GET the Project includes a free 8-module curriculum designed to empower high school students and college students to engage in meaningful conversations about pressing issues like media literacy, healthy body image, mental health, gender-based violence, and so much more. I'm excited to introduce our panelists today who will share their insights on these important topics, who also are a part of our organization or have been a part of our Youth Advisory Council. Please join me in welcoming, first and foremost, Liu Foy is a business leader, philanthropist, entertainment producer. She serves as a board member for the Representation Project and is deeply invested in mental health, equity, and storytelling. Emily also advocates for education and healthcare through the RM Liu Foundation and serves on the advisory board of the Liu Institute at the University of Notre Dame. Thank you, Emily, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also with us is Brittney Acord. She is a freshman at the University of California, Irvine, studying political science and pre-law, a former Youth Advisory Council member for the Representation Project. Brittney is passionate about her gender equity and mental health. Brittney, I'd love to start with you and hear from you on what you believe are key takeaways from this workshop that youth can apply to their everyday lives.
So during our curriculum building and editing process, we have learned that social media can have a really powerful impact, especially on teenagers and young adults. And while social media can be amazing and it has a lot of positive impacts, a lot of teenagers also face the negative stuff that can also happen, which can be body image and also many more. And so with this incoming pressure, it affects the way that they also may perceive themselves. And it can give them a negative impact on themselves, which is not acceptable. And everyone deserves self-love, which we go into further in this workshop that is really important for everyone to know, and self-care. And so by going through this curriculum and this workshop, it ensures that kids walk out of the curriculum knowing that they know who they are and are deserving and deserve to be loved and to feel loved and to have self-care for themselves.
That's incredible. As a mom, I have managed to keep my children off social media. They're on phones, and even just the culture around friends and other social media. It is a really tricky topic for us to navigate. And one of our previous panelists at one of our earlier topics talked about, a question that was asked of a student, which was, what would you be willing to go off social media for a week? And the student turned the question around and said, you're asking the wrong question. The question you should ask is, would all of you go off social media for a week? Because I don't want to miss out on what everyone else is doing or seeing or hearing about. So it's like, how do we build self-love for ourselves, but love for each other and our community, knowing that if we're all in this, we need to build this community of care.
Mm-hmm.
Did that resonate at all with the students, or can you see that translating through the curriculum in those discussions?
Yes, I really resonate with that actually, because with those viewpoints that you often get, especially with seeing like, oh yeah, like this person went this place, or like, oh my gosh, like they got this, they got that. You have this constant also self-gratification because it is on your cell phone. And so it's really also difficult for people to connect in the actual world because it's like, oh, like I can just text them or FaceTime them, or oh, I have Instagram and social media to immediately go after. And so it's a fine line, I think, between the difference of, oh my gosh, like, yay, I can keep connected, but also a lot of it, you can lose the actual personal impact that you can have, where it's like, oh yeah, like I can FaceTime them, but it's also like, yeah, you can also go out and see them at a coffee shop. So it's a fine line. And I think that's where teenagers need to learn like the balance between the two. And I think that's where the Get Workshop comes in handy, especially with just realizing it, because a lot of times you get so suffocated into it that you forget the realities that also come with it. And so, especially with you as being a mom, it's very beneficial for kids to learn that. Also, just be aware because that is something that kids, especially in like middle school, start getting introduced to. And like, oh my gosh, like my friend has social media, like they have Snapchat. Now I need Snapchat. And it's like, okay, but also like, are your parents okay with it? Like, you don't need to stick behind their back and get it, you know? So it's stuff like that where it's also like, okay, like it's also like I feel the need to be on it. But in reality, it's like, wait, hold on. Like you also like you don't need to grow up too fast. Like enjoy the moments because you're getting a little caught up on the phone. So I think as a mom, you're doing an amazing job, especially like just like teaching them like the balance. But that's where I think the workshop does a great job, especially just implementing in schools and everything else. I love it.
Brittney, thank you for saying that. Like in terms of, don't grow up too soon, right? There is this fear of missing out. There's this fear of always wanting to do more and be more and have more friends and more exposure and more likes. And I think it's important for all of us, any age, right? Whether you're teenagers or young children or adults, like I also need to watch my social media and my digital media habits because it affects all of our mental health and well-being. The topics of the training and Get the Project really are quite vast, from media literacy to healthy body image, self-care, digital well-being, gender norms, and mental health. You named a few of them, Brittney. But, Emily, I'd really love to hear from you if you can share your thoughts on how these vast topics are interconnected, like, and how are we addressing them together? And is addressing them together a strength of the Get curriculum?
Yeah, well, they are all very interconnected. It's about having agency, and it's about not letting your self-worth be dependent upon what other people think of you. And our inherent value as human beings is not based on what you look like, what you do, who you hang out with, where you do it. And that's what happens on social media. It takes the control away from you and it gives it to your peers. And so by addressing all of these topics, you're giving kids the knowledge, the awareness, the tools to establish boundaries and to prioritize self-care so that they can have more agency in their lives.
I love that point about agency, and whether it's kids or women today, agency is a huge topic of like how we get to control our choice and what we do with our bodies and our minds and our lives. And it's a good reminder that, our decisions today and how we raise and what we allow and don't allow, and what healthy boundaries we put in our children's lives protects that most important right that we all have. And I love how you frame that. It doesn't put it in the hands of other people or algorithms or marketers or people who are predatory and looking to really shape, influence the minds at the youngest of ages. So thank you for sharing that, Emily. I completely agree with that. Now, Brittney, back to you. You facilitated the workshops in your community. And I would really love to hear from you, and so that other people watching this, especially if they're thinking about facilitating this workshop in their school or an after school club, or just in among their peers, or even parents in their home. I would love to hear what your experience was like, especially for others who are considering doing this.
Yeah, so that experience is one of the best decisions I ever made, especially from a high school standpoint, because I brought it personally into what we called like our pack time, or it could be like your homeroom. And we brought it into that space where it's a period that every single week we come together as a class and we just go over different things. And this day we specifically spent on one of our get workshops. And it was really important, especially from a high school senior aspect, as we're about to go to college. We're also in the middle of doing all of our college apps. And so it's just a very stressful process. And especially for social media, it's like, oh, yeah, like you're in this mindset of like jealousy sometimes. And also that framework of like, wait, like it's also okay. Like the stress is normal. And all these things are in the workshop itself. And so you could see the impact it had on the kids in the classroom because they're like, wait, like the stress is normal. Also, like, yeah, like this person's here, but also it's like, but wait, I also have this. And so also puts people back into like that frame and mindset that like it is okay and what you have is perfect. And you don't need to change who you are to fit those standards that often you are put into place by, especially with being in high school. And it's like, especially with guys, you see a lot of times where it's like something will happen and they're scared to cry or to show their emotions. And it's normal to have these feelings. Like everyone can cry. Like it's not like, oh yeah, like I'm a boy, I can't cry. Like, no, it's okay. And so by having like these workshops, it just is that self reminder that it is okay and it's good for anyone. So especially if you're wanting to get involved, it's really easy to do. Like take the curriculum for its full force and potential and just go for it. Like it for me was amazing. I just screen shared it onto our little like board and it was amazing. And just by even like sparking the conversation after and just having everyone get involved or voice their opinion on it, or just even like, even if you don't voice it out loud, but just internally you're taking it in, I feel like that's just as helpful.
That's awesome. I love how you mentioned a little bit like it sparked a conversation. You all got to feel like you weren't alone in the feelings that you were having or the experiences that you were having. And isn't that sort of the challenge of our time is we're so connected technologically, but many people feel so isolated and alone in their experiences. So having this curriculum, having an opportunity, whether you're watching misrepresentation or the mask you live in or what, or going through these tools like connection and in person and an opportunity to talk about it and not feel alone. I'm hearing that's one of the biggest takeaways, which is incredible.
It was huge, especially with people afterwards. So like, wait, where did this come from? Because it wasn't something that obviously I was openly like, oh yeah, like guys, like I'm part of the youth advisory council. Like it's amazing. Like people asked me about it after, which also was just huge of its own because then people took that step back and they realized it's like, wait, there is more that I can do. And there's also another thing that like, wait, like this is important and I do take it with a grain of salt and take it for what it's worth. And I think that's beautiful on its own. And so just seeing that was amazing. And so that's when I did actually introduce them to other films. And also then I was like, wait, there's also more curriculum that you can also learn, which is amazing. Cause then it's like it also just keeps enforcing those thoughts that people are having. And it's amazing. I love it.
One clarification point is we're talking about just one of the 8 modules. So all of these like rich, vast topics, important, challenging subjects is just one singular module out of 8. So imagine having year-long discussions with across 8 of these and experiences and going outside and partaking in some of the activities that our curriculum encourages. It can be a very rich and fruitful experience for many. And I just wanted to clarify that this is just one of 8. And I hope that everybody who experiences this curriculum and our tools at the Representation Project, you know, start one and keep the ball rolling. So in terms of keeping the ball rolling, Emily, I'm going to throw you a curveball here and ask, or not Emily, but Brittney, I'm going to ask you something. Do you think you might do this at UC Irvine, like start a club or host like a curriculum conversation with your peers now that you're a pro?
I am actually very open to it. It's something that I've actually personally considered, especially when I was previously on the board. I always had this goal of making it bigger. And it doesn't even matter that it is something that started really small and minuscule. It's just something that I started doing in high school. It's like, wait, what else can I do? And that's also one of the things that you do learn by going through all these modules, especially with all eight. There's so much to it, and even what it doesn't cover, it opens up the question of what else can it cover. And that's when those conversations, I think, in the classrooms are really important. And especially now being on a college campus, there's more things that are involved. Students have more flexibility. They're away from home. They start making their own decisions. And so also it puts them back in that framework too of like, wait, like these are all still things that don't go away, even in those values that you're learning in high school. And so that is something that I've actually been very heavily considering because it is important. And I do see it on my campus, especially being a freshman and I'm currently in the dorms. So you can see like a lot of the different things that can happen. So, yes, I completely agree. And especially with mental health and a bunch of other things. And then you also start to go into the masculinity, femininity, all those things are really heavy, especially starting freshman year with parents not being there to help their kid. And so also just it embodies, I feel like college also really well. And not even college and high school. I think for any age, it's a great platform, a great thing to just educate and learn from because there are so many key takeaways. So
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. And I don't know about you, Emily, but when I hear Brittney speak as a freshman in college, it gives me a lot of hope for my younger children to know that, like, wow, sometimes we hear about like some of the statistics I even said earlier about the impact and the negativity of social media. But I think awareness is power, knowledge is power. And if we know it, then we can face it and we can figure out how to incorporate healthy ways of living it. So, Brittany, thank you for sharing all of that. And Emily, as a mother, how do you navigate social media with your children? I
Uh,
really, and I'm
well,
sure.
I well, I have an eighth grader and a sixth grader, so they do not have phones yet, and they don't have social media. They do have laptops for school, and they have smartwatches. They like to game, and they are part of group chats. So my husband and I do put in a lot of restrictions and guidelines, but I like to show them the research that I'm seeing about social media. I like to show them the information, whether it's a podcast or an article or a video clip, so that they understand where I'm coming from and that they don't think I'm just trying to be mean. So, but I mean, to have these conversations, I think really help. And, just want them to have a better understanding of the effects of social media. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think we talk about social media, but like these online platforms, gaming, chats, texts, all of that, in so many different formats, we have so many options at our fingertips. Are you having conversations with your children about their mental health and online behavior, especially when it comes to so many safety concerns that we have to be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. We talk about a lot. So I have a lot to share here. It's, I first of all, try to model a healthy lifestyle. So they see me meditating, they see me exercising regularly, they see me reading books. We actually value sleep in our house. So no devices in the bedroom at bedtime. We value face-to-face conversations. So no devices during meal times, sometimes on car rides when we want to talk. And we also talk about the importance of downtime and being bored and how that's good for our brains and how we need that downtime for self-reflection and creativity. And we do have discussions about online behavior. So don't engage in negative group chats. Don't block someone who you think is harassing you, silence your notifications. All the action steps in the curriculum are fantastic, and we have incorporated some of those. And we do, and most recently we've been talking about how we want to spend our free time. We only have so much time in our day. So when you take away sleep, school, work, chores, exercise, sports, I mean, there's just only so much time. So if we're spending that time staring at a screen, that's time that we could be pursuing our passion or learning a new skill or connecting with someone in person, and all the things that are necessary to develop that strong sense of self that is key to mental health. So there's a TED talk by Dino Ambrosi that talks about this, the battle for your time, and I highly recommend it. But we do have lots of conversations, especially now with AI. So my daughter, has, I'm just trying to educate her on the possibilities of what could happen, and it's all very scary, but it's just an ongoing conversation. So
That's amazing. And I have a final question, and I'm going to keep the ball in your court, Emily, because you've shared a lot of like practices that I think so many other parents could incorporate, some tips that come from the curriculum and otherwise. But my biggest question, just as from one parent to another, is how do we stay strong together to when the children are always, mom, please can I have more screen time? Can I have this? Can I have that? Or the pressure around them is to be engaged in that. And are you finding that when you set these routines and valuing your time, are your kids starting to see the value of it too?
yeah, I mean, they'll sometimes fight me on it. They'll complain about being bored, but then 15 minutes later they'll start baking, or they'll pick up an instrument, or they'll actually read books. It's like, okay, well, you just have to set boundaries and stand firm, and then be patient. Let them feel frustrated. Let them sit in that discomfort. It is so important to let kids feel frustration, delay that gratification, let them work through and sit through their emotions, and then they'll work it out. It's just most of the times we give in because we can't tolerate that frustration. And so then we give in. So it's about really also understanding ourselves and our own behaviors and what we can't tolerate. And so it's not only, it's not only what we do, it is about collective action too. And so it's about finding community. And I do have friends who are aligned with me as well on these issues. So that does make it easier. But at home, it's important to stand firm in your values. What are your values, and stand firm in that. So.
Well said. And I love that you remind us that it is good for children to be frustrated, to recognize and sit in their emotions and start to build those skills in handling those emotions. I think that's a great reminder for all of us at any age, right? It's really easy at the end of a busy day and tired, and you just want to you just start scrolling and scanning or playing mindless games, and sometimes there's always a time and a place for everything. And sometimes we need to make time for our own mind and our emotions to process.
Yeah.
So thank you. That is a wonderful reminder for our children and our youth, ourselves, and to stay strong in our values that we share, and to lean on others when we feel like you just can't simply do it alone. And I think that's the community element of this as well. So, Brittney, one final question for you. With educators who are trying to foster healthy conversations with their students, or students and youth trying to help, as well foster those healthy conversations, how do you think this GET workshop is going to help them do that?
I think this is actually where the GET workshop is one of the most important, I feel like, learning effective ways to get this idea across. Because by taking the curriculum, it makes one actually sit back, and it puts you in a mindset and a frame of thinking that you wouldn't be in otherwise. And I think self-reflection takes a lot of its own, because you're put back in that frame and mindset that it's like, wait, no, I'm actually thinking about it, especially if it's something that naturally doesn't cross your mind before, especially when it's right in front of your face, or that self-gratification, or as you guys were talking about, being used to you're like, wait, I'm bored, let's just grab the phone. And it's like, well, no, you're actually in that frame and mindset that it's like, wait, no, this is normal. And especially after taking the curriculum and learning it, it's a now like a thought that probably was not a thought before. And that's where I feel like one learns the most is when you are in those frame and mindset of being bored, as you guys have just previously talked about. And so that's when the curriculum, I feel like, thrives and is amazing because then kids can take those takeaways and reflect. And then that's when kids really learn the lesson is either one, by going through it, or two, that reflection period. Because we all have had a bad test score, we've had a relationship that just did not go our way. And that's when you sit back and you're in that denial period or really sad. You go through the feelings of being sad and upset, but then after you have that reflection. And I think that's when this really thrives, is during that period of reflection. And yeah.
Love that.
Well said. Period of reflection. And I think the curriculum and these tools and just even this conversation, making time to reflect on what can we learn from each other and what perspectives do we have. We each have something different about these tools and about these very challenging topics. But I even feel a better, stronger sense of community even with the both of you. Emily, I might call you and be like, how are you dealing with this? I need some help. And
Please.
you know, you've been such an incredible member of the Youth Advisory Council and a rising leader who is using her voice for incredible impact and change. And I just want to thank you for serving on the Youth Advisory Council and being a part of our organization. And Emily, I want to thank you for being such an incredible board member to this organization and helping us propel this work forward. So as we wrap up today's panel on social media and mental health, I just want to really encourage everyone to also take time for reflection, to look at our tools and ask us questions and give us feedback as you incorporate them, because the topics will always change and we will always want to be as helpful as we can in providing tools that reflect your experiences, your lived experiences. I'm most proud that this curriculum was built in partnership with the youth themselves as part of the Youth Advisory Council, that your voices were centered in developing the curriculum you wanted to see happen in your communities and schools. And so with that, you have given us a gift that we can now pass along and hopefully get into so many communities and ultimately change hearts and minds across the globe, quite frankly. So with that, thank you all for watching this. We couldn't do this without the support of our partners. You make this work possible. Please continue to support our organization so we can do this work and so much more. Thank you.